Daydreamaholic by C. Don McCallum. Chapter 14. That's not exactly how the monologue ended. The applause was just in her mind, a minor setback in her long road to recovery. When Marcie finished her monologue, Mrs. Lopez made a comment about it, a comment that Marcie didn't hear. Her head was whirling. She looked around the room. It was not a cheering crowd, sure to be lined up at her dressing room door later, begging for autographs. No, it was just the same frightened group of kids she had seen before her with glazed eyes. Brandon didn't seem to have heard a word she said. Even the terror had returned to Matt's face. The only one who didn't seem freaked out at the end was Tabitha, who looked like she was writing a note. "Oh, I see monkeys can write," Marcie thought and smiled as she walked in a daze back to her seat. "I bet Mrs. Des Lopez was the only one in here who heard what I said," Marcie thought, still lightheaded from all that talking in front of all those people. Then she started feeling really weird. She had this funny feeling that she was falling, not because she was sick or nervous or going to faint. Somehow something had snuck up under her feet. She was falling. It was only when she saw Tabitha's sneering face swiftly approaching her own that she had an idea of what had happened. She had tripped on Tabitha's backpack on the way back to her chair, just catching herself from falling. "What is your problem?" Tabitha cackled. Marcie was so out of it that she couldn't hear the kids laughing. "Marcie, are you okay?" Mrs. Lopez asked. "Yes, ma'am," she smiled weakly, standing to straighten her dress. "Okay, well, have a seat then." And she went back to her list. Tabitha flipped her hair and snarled. "Let's see. How about," Mrs. Lopez called on the next student, but Marcie didn't hear the student's name. She was too embarrassed and too upset about what she thought she saw while she was busy making a fool of herself tripping on Tabitha's backpack. And she had seen it. Tabitha was writing a note to Brandon. On the note, Marcie distinctly saw the words, "She's so pathetic." Is Tabitha writing that about me? She wondered. Is that what Brandon thinks of me too? She started to get a sick feeling in her stomach. Her head was reeling. Even the safety of her desk wasn't comforting to her. It didn't help either that she just made a fool of herself in front of the whole class by giving that monologue. She had to top it all off with a little tumbling act. What was her grand finale going to be? Would it be at the social tonight? She could see it now. She shows up to the social all dressed up, alone. Every guy in the school turning away from her, refusing to dance with her because they heard about her stupid monologue. "Are you crazy?" one guy would say. "I wouldn't go near her," another would say. "She'll probably fall on me." "Yeah, and break your feet. Then she'll try to bandage your feet with toilet paper." Is dorkiness that severe contagious? None of the girls would talk to her because Tabitha thinks she's such a loser. She could already hear Tabitha's loud laugh. She's got to rub it in how she and not Marcie had Brandon. Perhaps the DJ will even read an excerpt from Tabitha's note to Brandon over the PA system. "That Marcie girl is such a loser," she heard the DJ read in his rock and roll voice. She wished she could fill herself with helium like so many dance floor balloons and just float away, or prick her latex skin with a pin and disappear. As the next student made his way to the front of the room, did she miss a whole monologue? Tabitha passed her note to Brandon. Tabitha looked back over her shoulder and gave Marcie that snobby smile of hers. "I got Brandon." "You didn't," the smile seemed to say, "and you never will." Feeling her heart might explode, Marcie rested her head on her desk and tried to make herself invisible. When the end of the school day finally arrived, Marcie headed straight to her locker and rushed to the exit. She didn't want to see Sammy or Matt, and she definitely didn't want to see Tabitha. She didn't even want to see Brandon. She just wanted to go home and crawl into bed. "There's no way I'm going to show my face at the social tonight," she thought. Amid the throngs of students bustling in and around the school, Marcie wove her way to the sidewalk that led to her house. She looked at the ground in front of her because she didn't want to see anything that would serve as a reminder of what a terrible week she'd had. She didn't even look at her mismatched shoes. Why does Tabitha have to be so mean all the time, she thought. Isn't it enough that I'm constantly making myself look stupid? I sure don't need any help from her. Isn't it enough that Brandon asked her to the dance, that he likes her? No, she has to blab to him and all her friends about every time I mess up. Marcie's face was red hot from anger. She'd left the other kids who walk home this way behind her. She was walking so fast. She had to get by them as soon as she could. It was unbearable to listen to them talk about what they were going to wear, where they would eat before they went. She imagined Tabitha and her friends were having the same conversation. I wish there was something I could do to make her feel as bad as I do. Marcie turned and looked behind her. She thought she could see Brandon walking with his friends in the distance. He would be getting ready for the dance when he got home. Then he'd walk over to Tabitha's, or maybe his mom would drive him over to pick her up. He probably bought her a corsage. He's so thoughtful. Maybe they would go out to dinner beforehand. Marcie whirled back around, walking faster than before. I've got to do something. I'm going to get Tabitha back. I'm going to start a rumor about her, she thought. I'm going to tell people that there's a reason Brandon and all the other guys are so interested in her. And you know what that is? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get her back. I'm not going to let her win. The approaching dusk muted the usually bright colors of Marcie's bedroom. To shut out what little light there was, Marcie hid her head under her pillow. She heard a quiet knock on her door, but she didn't answer. The door opened slightly, then all the way. Marcie, her mom said, with the sound of Jonathan's little footsteps trailing behind her. I thought you'd be dressed by now. What's wrong? I don't want to go to the social, she mumbled. Are you sick? She's mad because Brandon asked that other girl to the social, Jonathan squealed. Go away, Marcie screamed, throwing one of her pillows at him. Go on, John, his mother told him and scooted him toward the door. Shouldn't I go get ready for the social? He asked. Marcie uncovered her head to look up at her mom with pleading eyes. He's not going, is he? No, he's not going. She lightly shoved him to the door. He's staying home with his father. Now, John, go see what he's doing. Your sister and I need to talk. Marcie's mom shut the door behind her little son and walked to bedside. She sat beside her, lifted the pillow off her head, and stroked her daughter's hair. Marcie immediately started crying again. Her mom let her. She just sat and waited until she was ready to talk. Finally, Marcie said, I'm just mad at this girl at school. The tears slowed up a little bit. She took a deep breath. She's always making fun of me, and today I saw a note she was writing to Brandon about me being a loser. Do you think she's jealous of you? Her mom asked. I don't know why she'd be jealous of me. I'm not the most popular girl in school like she is. I'm not Miss Perfect like she is. I'm not going to the social with Brandon. She stopped. Like she is, her mom said. Marcie nodded because that was the only thing she could do except burst out crying again. Can you talk to her about it? Her mom asked. What would I say? She groaned. Tell her how you feel. Tell her you don't like being talked about, that starting rumors about people is a bad way to make and keep friends. But the most important thing to do while you're talking to her is to stay calm about it. I don't think I can do that, she winced. Well, what else can you do? Maybe I could just ignore her or write her a note, but she'd probably just show it to all her friends and call me a crybaby. Or you could try talking to a counselor or teacher about it, her mom suggested. Yeah, Marcie said, but she was staring off at the dwindling daylight. What are you thinking? Her mom asked. What I really want to do is to get her back, to start a rumor about her. Do you really think that's going to help anything? No, but it sure would make me feel better, Marcie smiled. It might feel good for a little while, but I bet that later on you would just end up feeling worse. Marcie's mom stroked her daughter's hair again. I know you. You couldn't live with yourself if you did something like that. That's part of what makes you so special. Marcie smiled and rolled on her back. Can I tell you about my week? Of course, her mom said. Marcie's mom gasped and laughed at all the right places as she listened. She even understood about being a daydreamaholic. Believe me, Mrs. Taylor said. I've been there. I think I'm a recovering daydreamaholic myself. Really? Marcie couldn't imagine her mom dreaming up the stuff that Marcie daydreamed about. Really, but having a wild imagination doesn't have to just be something that gets in your way. Weren't you listening? I don't think I can believe you after the week I've had. No, listen, I want you to try something. Try daydreaming about something that you want to really do, something that could really happen. You can make it like a rehearsal. You can have people react any way you want so you can practice how you want to react. Marcie looked at her mom with great suspicion, squinting her eyes and twisting her mouth. Give it a try. What could it hurt? I guess. She wasn't sure how it would work, but you never know till you try. She sat up. Looking out the window, she could see the last of the daylight gracing the sky. So are we going to the social or not? Her mom asked. We're going, Marcie sighed, but you have to promise me something. You have to promise that Jonathan is not going. There's no way I could take it after the week I've had. After the week you've had, there's no way I could do that to you. Now come on, get up and get ready. Marcie lifted herself up and headed toward her closet as her mom shut the door behind her. Looking in the mirror, she didn't see Coach Marcie. There was no little fairy in sight. All she saw was herself. As she got dressed, she started going over in her mind what she'd say if she had a chance to talk to Tabitha McLean without any monkey business. Thank you for listening to Daydreamaholic by C. Don McCallum. If you're enjoying this story, please consider sharing it with someone you know, and please like the video and subscribe to this channel to help others discover these stories.